My name is Dr. Gina Grandi. I'm the Dean and a professor at the Hill and Levene Schools of Business at the University of Regina. Over the next hour, we will hear from alum Jada Yee, a lifelong learner of the U of R. Before I introduce Jada, I do want to acknowledge that the University of Regina is situated on Treaty 4 lands, the traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis. The University of Regina also has a presence in Treaty 6. The U of R's Alumni Engagement Department is pleased to be able to offer the Alumni Effect Speaker Series virtually. I am excited to be your host today and to have this opportunity to connect with Levene alum and my friend, Jada Yee. Jada is not only an incredibly interesting and accomplished individual, he is someone I admire greatly. And I'm certain that you're going to find our guest engaging and will leave us today feeling as inspired as I do by Jada. As you will already have received a note, our session today is being recorded and it will be posted on the U of R alumni website so that you can watch the presentations again or share this with your family and friends. Previous sessions of the Alumni Effect Speaker Series can also be found there. Alexis is going to share with you the link to the alumni website in the chat if you'd like to access this video later. Now, while you're all here, the main event, it is my pleasure to formally introduce our September speaker for the University of Regina's Alumni Effect Virtual Speaker Series, Jada Yee. Jada, we are absolutely delighted for you to join us today, and I want to thank you for this privilege. Jada has earned a diploma in administration, a certificate in hospitality, gaming, and entertainment management, a Bachelor of Administration, and most recently, a Master's of Administration in Leadership. He is an alum from both the U of R and First Nations University of Canada. And of course, I would be remiss not to put a plug in, of course, an alum from the Levene School of Business. Jada is currently the Director of Business Development for FHQ Developments, and he teaches Indigenous Business and Public Administration at the First Nations University of Canada. And as my colleague Bruce Anderson just made note of, he is a frequent guest speaker at other classes across campus. Jada and I are going to talk about his career path, his experiences as a student and alum of U of R, and his insights as an Indigenous leader in our community. Following our conversation, we're going to have time for your questions. Feel free to add your questions in the chat feature during our conversation, and I will get to as many of those as I'm able a little later in our time together. So the sooner you get those in, the more likely we're going to get a chance to get Jada to answer those questions. Jada, I want to welcome you and give you a warm welcome. And I'm also going to ask if there's anything else you'd like our audience to know today before we start our conversation.
No, that was a great introduction, and I'll wire you some money for that great intro for me. So, but no, I'll say that it's just I'm really honored to be asked to join and kind of share my journey to this date, and looking forward to answering any and all questions.
Sounds great. So let's get at it then.
Sure.
So Jada, my first question for you is, it relates to your current role, but I want to take us back a little bit. When you and I first met, you were working with Casino Regina. Mm-hmm. Since that time, you've moved on to hold some other interesting and challenging roles with SaskGaming, Pro Metal Industries, and now FHQ. Tell us about that journey and the key enabling forces that have led to your career success.
Sure. Yes, it's important. That's a great question, by the way, and it's going to take I'm going to take you on a journey of how I got here, and because the Jada Yee that Gina, wasn't the Jada Yee back in my teenage years. The Jada Yee back then, I guess 30 some years ago. Oh man, I'm old. But I was different. I was facing some challenges. And I didn't know how to direct and deal with those challenges. One thing I'm very that I talk about is along my journey is that I'm a high school dropout. I wasn't. I kind of, back when I was a teenager, I was a lost soul, and I wanted to kind of party and drink, and that's all I wanted to do in life. And so I dropped out. The reason why I chose SaskGaming is because they only required a grade 10 education to get on there. And so I kind of got on as a part-time security guard, but there were key people inside SaskGaming that were paying attention to me and gave me an opportunity. I know we can talk about sponsorship and mentorship down the road, but they gave me a chance, and they invested and trusted me, and really made me believe in myself when I didn't believe in myself at the time. And SaskGaming was very important to me because they gave me an opportunity to go back to university. I started as a mature student at the University of Regina when I was 22, eventually getting my certificate in hospitality, diploma in business, and eventually my degree in my bachelor's of administration. So SaskGaming really helped develop me, and throughout that time, I was able to really not stay put into one department. They let me become the manager of mostly every department on the gaming floor: slots, pit boss, bank, customer service, marketing, surveillance, all that. And that led me to one of my key roles was casino manager. I was about 26 when I became casino manager. And that's really what I wanted to be in life. And I achieved that when I was 26. So I wanted to set my goals even higher. And so, I was able to work in the show lounge and, food and beverage. And, it was great. I kept on pushing myself more and more and more, and I wanted more and more responsibility. And so there's an opportunity, and I'll forever be grateful for SaskGaming and the opportunity that they gave me. But as I started going through university, and especially First Nations University, at the time, my mother is part of the 60s scoop. She didn't know anything about her Indigenous culture, and neither did I. That's why I went to First Nations University of Canada, because I was curious about who I was and where I came from. And First Nations University, yes, they gave me my education, but more importantly, they gave me my identity as well. And so, that was equally, if not more important to me. And so I got a feeling that I wanted to go back and work for Indigenous. I wanted to kind of work for my people. And that's where Pasqua First Nations came along in 2018, 2019. And they have a Indigenous metal fabrication company called Pro Metal Industries, which many of you may or may not know. They do the Orange Feather Initiative, which was a massive success last year. And I was able to come along and be the GM for that. And I absolutely loved working for Pro Metal and Pasqua First Nation. And then this spot opened up for the Director of Business Development for the Tribal Council. For those that don't know, the Tribal Council is they have 11 nations that are shareholders. And so instead of, for me, I saw it as a way to give back to 11 nations, with my nation being one of them, which is Wood Mountain Lakota First Nation. And so I jumped at the chance to be a part of FHQ Developments in my current role. And it's been 2.5 years now, and it's been absolutely wonderful working for the Tribal Council. So how I got to this point today was people believing in me, people supporting me, and ultimately me gaining enough confidence in myself to take that leap of faith. Because when I left SaskGaming, I was there for 20 years, and a lot of people were kind of questioning me as to, you're going to give up your pension, your benefits, all that stuff. But at the time, I wanted to make that leap of faith and to, take a higher role as a director and as a GM, take that senior leadership role. So it's been 2 years, and I've loved every step of the way, the good days and the bad days. So
Jada, incredibly powerful on many accounts and many lessons for us to take away, around how important it is for organizations to invest in people, how particular individuals and the roles that other people can play in mentorship and sponsorship, which we'll come back to, but also about your own identity project, if I can call it that. And you can correct me if you say, no, Gina, that's not what I would call it, in being a part of a First Nations university. And, through that journey, I assume from what you've said is also that part of giving back and playing a role to your own communities here and across the country. So incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. Jada, you touched on that notion of mentorship and sponsorship. And I know also at FHQ, there are a number of, other alum, incredible people, alum from U of R, but also incredible people making real change and making real important contributions to our community. Tell us about how mentorship or sponsorship played a role in your success. So is there someone who stands out for you, or are there particular points in time, and why was that so important to you, and why is it so important for us to pass that on?
Again, great question. I think it comes down to when it comes to, I guess, our elders' teachings with Indigenous, it's everything is circular. That circle of life, right? You when it comes to mentorship, or even in learning in life, first we were the students, and then we become the teacher as elders, right? And so I look at it as I'm in a position and I have enough experience now to give back and mentor, because people took a chance on me. When you talk about key figures, there's a couple of people that I absolutely believe helped me get to where I am today. And back at SaskGaming, you had people such as there's a lady named Deborah Murray and Alma Shulak, and they were in charge of HR, but also it was called the Aboriginal Management Development Program. And it was Alma and Deborah that approached me and told me to apply. And at the time, I was so ashamed that I didn't even have my grade 12. And so I told them, I would love to, but I just can't because I don't have grade 12. They're the ones that said, no, you can come back as a mature student. We can enroll you. And so, again, I didn't even know about that. And, but they were kind of, I would say, the rock that dropped in the middle of the pond that created that massive ripple effect for me. Along the way, I had other mentors within SaskGaming, such as our ex-CEO, Marty Klein. Me and him just really bonded, and I learned a lot from him. Another person would be Jerry Fisher. He is now at Mosaic. He was my old boss. I think even my last boss at the casino was Bob Crow, who I think is in charge of food at Luther College. Wonderful, very experienced, but extremely humble. I took things from each of them that I still apply to my leadership role today. Again, First Nations University, there was some elders there that really took time to sit down with me and encourage me and really informed me and educated me on not only where I came from, Wood Mountain, but also the Indigenous principles of myself. It's scary when you're not used to being around Indigenous and you go to First Nations University, and they took the time to encourage me and really walk me through the process as a pipe ceremony and sweats and just being a part of that whole culture. And so I would say the late great Isidore Pelche and the late elder Ken Goodwill were the ones that really helped me, as well as Joanne Goodpipe. Professor Joanne Goodpipe was a professor in the business admin at First Nations University that really took the time to develop me and help me with my writing, help me with my critical thinking, and I owe a lot to my success in academia to Professor Joanne Goodpipe, who unfortunately passed away last year. And so I always look at those people that really helped me and to guide me and to, I try to think of them every day when I smudge and to remember their teachings.
Jada, thank you for that. And I love that notion of, reflecting on how, as a number of individuals and kind of pulling out kind of the gifts, right, that they share, and sort of so many of them coming together to be able. And I mean, again, Jada, you're such a humble guy in the sense that you talk about, you bonded with this person. Jada, I've yet to find a person that isn't able to bond with you, and who wouldn't see the potential and how deserving you would be to have all of those opportunities, because, and again, to see now how you give back so much to the people around you. Jada, when you talk about, you talked about being ashamed even of not having grades 12 and not going back. And I've only known you for a relatively short period of time when you think about kind of, I didn't know you back then. But what I can say is that there any opportunity that comes your way now where you see an opportunity for growth, for giving back, you jump. And I want to talk about one of those opportunities, one of those more recent adventures, if I can call it that. You've been a participant in the Governor General's Canadian Leadership Conference. Tell me about that experience. I tracked you through LinkedIn. That's the only social media I'm on, but I was intrigued as to what was happening. But tell me about that experience. So how did you become a part of that? What was involved, and what have you taken away from that experience?
Well, I will say the Governor General Leadership Conference, absolutely, that was a turning point in my life. So I'll kind of backtrack as to how I became a part of this. And it was actually another alumni from University of Regina, Victor Thomas, that made me aware of this whole program. I think everyone in this chat will probably know who Victor Thomas is. That he's the one that kind of said, would you apply for this conference? And I did my research. And then the next week, he actually called me for a breakfast meeting with the ex-Governor General David Johnston. And so I was having breakfast with him, just talking about, reconciliation, stuff like that. And David Johnston told me to apply for this. And I shouldn't say this, but he says, put me down as a reference. And so I put, if the ex-Governor General wants, you to use him as a reference, I'll use him. So I applied for this, but there is a couple of interview processes to go through. But I will say, if you guys have a chance to be a part of this, be a part of it, because as leaders, and every single person in this chat is a leader. And what this does is that you get to choose, or you get to explore a part of Canada that you've never explored before, with people who don't think like you, who don't act like you. So you will be challenged. And I think they don't say it, but I think a huge part of this conference is to challenge your thought process. And so, there are, I think, a little over 200 people that are chosen for this conference every, I think, 4 years. And I went to it, and the people that the keynote speakers that you're that you listen to, they're people that are very recognizable. There's kind of a cone of silence that you don't talk about it, but the people there are fantastic. And then you spend probably about 10 days traveling in a very rigorous, you're up at 6:30 in the morning, you're on the bus, sometimes you're flying as well, but you're exploring part of Canada with people that are either, you have 1/3 visible minorities, 1/3 that are union, and 1/3 that are kind of senior executives. And so you meet these organizations that sometimes people don't agree with, right? And when you debrief at the end of the day, which is pretty much late at night, 10, 11 at night, you have a debrief. Sometimes people don't agree with that, and you have to come to a general consensus afterwards of your tour of what you've learned And also, what are your recommendations? And then you present your findings to the Governor General of Canada. And I'll just call it the GGCLC conference, definitely changed my life. And the people that I met there, I want to just take a moment. I do see one person, his name's Sean Wilshire. I met him through the conference. He's in his chat. I want to say hello to Sean and just thank him for his teachings and what he taught me about his community, and I absolutely love it. So Sean, hopefully I'll end up in Newfoundland to meet you as well. So, but yeah, I recommend if you guys have a chance to attend and apply for the Governor General Leadership Conference, please do so. It'll absolutely challenge you, but you will walk out a stronger and better human being that's ready. I now see, I want to make an impact throughout Canada now. That's my vision because of this conference.
Jada, it sounds like an amazing experience. And, you talk about being challenged, and you gave a shout out to somebody joining us today. But my sense is as well is that, your network now has expanded from the province to across the country. And if you do ever end up visiting Sean in Newfoundland, don't forget, I have roots there as well. So I can give you some good recommendations as to where you need to go. But, it sounds like an amazing experience, and that you took advantage of every single part of that, and we will benefit, here at the university and the province because of that.
Yeah, no, like I said, it definitely, like I said, it was probably one of the more challenging. When you're spending, there's I think 15 people in my study group, and not everyone got along, but you have to spend almost basically 20 hours a day. Wow. You get very little sleep. You're traveling. I think in 9 days we met with over 60 organizations, and so it was rigorous. But would I do it again? In an absolute heartbeat, I would do it again. So, and you're away for 2.5 weeks. You can't be answering emails. So I mean, it's definitely challenging. But it's like I said, I highly encourage everyone to apply for the next one.
Thank you, Jada, for sharing that. Jada, you've talked about your time at FNU and the gifts that many people there provided to you as a part of that journey. You completed programs both at University of Regina, Levene, and First Nations University. Is there one or two key experiences from that time that stands out as most memorable and important in reaching your goals? You talked about Professor Goodpipe and the time that she devoted to you. You seem to be a person who is able to take from the experiences that you have and to be able to make the most of them and share that and pass it on to others. Is there anything else that stands out for you in regards to how U of R and/or FNU have helped you in reaching your goals, or maybe even how it's allowed you to see new goals that you wouldn't have seen even before?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of occasions. I think one when it's a small gesture, but it's a very impactful gesture to me. When I was presented tobacco to help carry the pipes for a pipe ceremony at First Nation University, that was a huge honor for me. But going back to Professor Goodpipe, of course, I have a strong background in gaming. She asked me to help out with some research with the gaming project, but she also gave me the opportunity and invited me down to present with her in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace at a major gaming conference. And so that was, I think, the first kind of, that was back in 2013, 14. And that was the first time I thought, oh, wow, like I'm really doing something special here, I would say when I convocated First Nations University with my bachelor's, that was a historic moment because as simple as it may sound, I never got to walk across that stage, right? And so that was the first time in my life, where I was able to walk across the stage and get a degree and saying that I've accomplished something. Also, my very first day of starting at the Levene graduate school was a very important date for me as well, because I would have never thought 30 years ago that I would be entering into a master's program, and also my convocation day as well, September of 2020. I would have never thought that I would have graduated with my master's as well, let alone an Indigenous, person getting their master's. And when I left, it was so great to see so many brown faces, more and more coming to the Levene School of Business that are taking, their masters. It's so important for Indigenous people to get their education. Our elders teach us that education is our new buffalo, right? Traditional times, buffalo, it basically, that was our key to survival. We used everything from the buffalo to survive. And now elders teach us that education is our new buffalo. We need to get that education in order for us to survive and make a livelihood for our family. So, props to U of R and Levene School of Business for their devotion to indigenization, to get more and more Indigenous students into graduate studies. So, but yeah, I guess for me, I'd say, my convocation day was a very special day for me for my master's. And I will say, I look forward to entering into applying for my doctorate. So
that's what I like to hear. And I know now, really, when you tell me about going to Caesar's Palace to present research, I just think, yeah, no wonder you're inspired to become an academic, Jada. So I think that was very clever, generous of Professor Goodpipe, but also very clever in regards to opening potential pathways for our students to see. Jada, your comment, we're getting close to our time, and I'm going to encourage people to start putting their questions in the chat. But I am going to ask you, your comments, I think, lead nicely to this question. You are clearly a proud Indigenous leader. What one piece of advice might you offer to Indigenous students who are joining us today?
As Indigenous students, I would say that it's good to see you here. It's good to see you in taking taking the next step and achieving your goals. It goes back to what I just said, was education is our new buffalo. And so I'm so happy to see and share my experiences with so many Indigenous students, because I was once an Indigenous student as well, right? And I was filled, I'll be honest with you, I was filled with doubt, saying that I shouldn't be here. I'm not smart enough for this. So I will say, if you have thoughts like that, absolutely, you are meant to be here. And, I would say, get involved as much as you can into what both First Nations University and the University of Regina have to offer when it comes to student activities. I would say that get involved with pipe ceremonies, round dances. I would say get involved with the Student Association as well when it comes to the University of Regina. Get involved. Expand. What we say is expand your circle in a good way, right? It's good to have Indigenous professionals, but also non-Indigenous allies as well to help expand our circles.
Thank you, Jada. And that part about the non-Indigenous allies, as a non-Indigenous leader, here's my question, I guess, to you, or one question to you. What piece of advice might you offer to people like me and other non-Indigenous leaders who might be joining us today to move us closer to truth and reconciliation?
Oh, awesome. I would say that my advice to you is start thinking about the future and what reconciliation really means. I think now when we talk about reconciliation, it talks about what led us to this point, right? And I think we're all aware of of the residential schools and the harm and the genocide that has happened, what we talk about for FHQ is let's start having meaningful discussions about what the future holds. What does that look like when it comes to, example is when it comes to business for FHQ. We talk about helping organizations with their procurement policy with regards to Indigenous business, right? So I would say look at what impact, what positive economic and social impacts can you as non-Indigenous bring towards this portion of reconciliation. When it comes to academia, what does it look like when it comes to the future? When it comes to business, what does it look like in your industry when it comes to walking this journey alongside Indigenous, right? And so I always say Indigenous have a, when it comes to reconciliation, yes, there's non-Indigenous, but Indigenous play a part too by walking alongside everyone in this journey towards reconciliation.
Thank you, Jada. Great advice. Jada, you talk about FHQ and what you're doing there. What excites you most about the role? So, whether that's the challenges you're facing, you've been in your role a little while, but not all that long. What excites you most about what you're able to do there?
What excites me most is, first and foremost, the team that I have around me. They make my job so much easier. And so I have absolute just stars around me that are able to allow me to kind of keep me on top of the business with the visionary stuff. But I will say that what excites me the most is I can actually see the impacts that our team at FHQ is making within the Indigenous nations. And it goes far beyond Treaty 4 territory, right? We're having discussions nationwide when it comes to the impacts that we're making. But, the business model that we created for FHQ is like no other. And it's exciting to see that when we have these discussions, people are excited to line up and do business with FHQ. The culture that our CEO Thomas Benjo has created here is unlike any other organization that I work for. And we talk about mentorship. There's two-way mentorships that are happening here. I'm teaching. We have a student, Cree LaValle, that I'm mentoring, but she also teaches me about some stuff as well. So it's a reverse mentorship.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, and Thomas, who I know is a rock star, really, right? Let's be honest, he's a rock star. I see a question, Jada, and I'm going to take that question because I know we're getting close to time. Sure. The question's coming from Alexis, and she's asking, I'm wondering what kind of challenges you faced when you decided to go back to school and continue on in university after not completing high school. So do you have any advice for people who are struggling with the idea of going back as an adult and upgrading their education?
Yeah, the challenges that I faced that I thought of was one, time, and I'm so thankful that I have an amazing support. My wife is amazing. So when I was going back, she kind of just told me, when you go back to school, your social life is not going to exist. And so you have to be focused, and she basically broke it down as to, I think it was like 11 weeks per semester. But she said, can you commit to 11 weeks? And I thought, yeah, I can do that. She goes, just take it 11 weeks at a time. If you can commit, you're not going out, with your friends, you're going to be doing your studies for 11 weeks. And if you can do that, then you go on to the next semester. And that's really kind of what mentally prepared me was prioritizing, because it was a challenge to, at the time I had 2 children, and even going back when I was in my master's, I had 4 children then, right? And so I think for me is making sure that you prioritize. Time management is essential as well. But when it comes to challenges, yeah, like time was definitely the biggest challenge, and then resources as well. I had to work full time as well in order to pay the bills, so just time management for sure was to making sure that I could devote my time to my studies.
Wise advice from you, but I think also wise advice from your partner to you. And, you talk, and I think really that notion of how important having that support system is there as well, because I often say when, of course, students are graduating that, a diploma, a certificate, or degree is not really only the person who's walking across the stage. There's so many other people in their lives that have played a role to enable that and allow that to create and help support that person get there.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that.
Jade, I have a question for you, and it is about, I'm going to go back to FHQ if I can. And you talked about that business model that's in place. Are you able to share a little bit with us about what is unique about that business model, and what does that mean for the future of Saskatchewan even as we move forward?
Yeah, for sure. I think when it comes to doing business with FHQ, I mean, first and foremost, we are a very proud Indigenous company, which is led by our Indigenous values, right? I think I see one of my workers on here, but Annie Charles can attest to when it comes to business, you hear about the guiding principles and all that stuff. We basically have one guiding principle, and it's tap away one. Right? Do you come from a good place? Right? When you conduct yourself, do you do it in a good way? When you have meetings with people, do you come from a good place? Right? And as long as you're coming from a good place and being transparent, you can't be steered wrong. FHQ Developments is able to, partner with industry leaders when it comes to doing business. We're able to really invest very little, but our ROIs have been astronomical. We were, up until about 2 weeks ago, we were in the tech world. We just sold our shares with we had SAS Plato. We successfully sold that. We had an ROI of over 1,100% ROI, and we're able to now take that ROI and not only do dividends to each of the 11 nations that are our shareholders, right? But we're now able to take a portion of that and to invest in some more startups as well. So the business goal overall, what we want to do is create enough revenue that we're able to do dividends on a yearly basis to the 11 nations that are our shareholders. But we're also able to, doing business as Indigenous people. When we meet with organizations that want to partner or, I guess, do business with us for procurement reasons, one of the things we get asked a lot would be, what's your capacity? Do you guys have capacity? Can you guys fulfill this? With our business model, we're able to say, absolutely, we can. Because not only do we partner with industry leaders that have that capacity, right? It actually doesn't impact their revenue, because we only partner with on opportunities that place a high market value on Indigenous content. So it's a win-win for us. But in the long run, what we're doing is not only are we getting revenue, but most importantly, we are ensuring that we are employing Indigenous people as well. And when we create these companies with these leaders, it is a must that we have to have a D&I plan as well, to have Indigenous seen throughout every level of that organization. So, yes, revenues, they say cash is king. I get that. But most importantly as well is that we have to create economic livelihood with our Indigenous people. So they can, start at one of our companies, and they can actually have a career there, that they can, become the GM or even the president of one of our companies. So that's basically our business model.
And you talk about win-win. I think it's win-win as well for our province and our country as well, Jada. Jada, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our time, and you and I could go on all afternoon, I'm sure, but other people, I'm sure, have to get back to the rest of their day. I want to thank everyone for joining us today and being part of this conversation. And Jada, not only do I want to thank you, I want to offer an observation. You are such an incredibly generous guy, and you talk about how all of these other people have played a role in your success. And I will say, as somebody standing on the sideline, you have deserved every opportunity that's come your way, and you have made the most of all of those opportunities. And it truly is a privilege to have the chance to talk with you today, but also to have had the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better through our program, but even today. So I want to thank you for being you, sharing your expertise, choosing FNU and choosing U of R for your programs, and again, for such an insightful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
A video of today's Alumni Effect will be posted soon on the alumni section of our website. A link to the website can be found in the chat, and feel free to share that with your family and friends. And don't forget to check the university's website for information on upcoming events in this series and more. The next Alumni Effect speaker will be on October the 18th and will feature Teresa Posniak, a multimedia artist who works in painting, printmaking, and sculpture, and who is a proud alum of the University of Regina. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jada. It's been a pleasure. And until October the 18th, take care and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.